This plant has had a lot of confusion on the houseplant market because it's often sold as Monstera karsteniana, but to my knowledge, it doesn't have a proper scientific name. It's just Monstera sp. Peru, which probably tells me that it was collected in Peru, and then somebody actually put together a fictitious name for it. Karsteniana, I think, is actually, though, a really good species name because it's kind of got this karst kind of topography to its leaves. It's very coriaceous, very rubbery, almost, dare I say, a little succulent. So, you know, I'm not sure exactly where this was collected, but if it's from Peru, maybe it is in an area, perhaps in the forest or maybe around the Andes. And it's used to actually getting dried out because it does have a little bit more of a waxy sheen and a little bit more coriaceous, as I was saying. So it has like these little ripples to the leaves and a little bit more succulent in nature. This is actually one of the newer Monstera spas that I have gotten. I picked this up at my local garden center, but I actually had several others. I had one that I ended up bringing in from the Netherlands, which I think actually this is a very common plant that you could actually find within Europe, and surprisingly, you know, not so much in the US. I think that a lot of people, if they find them, they swipe them up pretty quickly. And I also had like some smaller cuttings as well. And this plant definitely trails. This one is up on this kind of coconut core pole right here, so you could get a sphagnum pole, and it will take its little adventitious roots, which are the little nodes or the little roots that come out of the sides of the stem where the leaf is, and it will kind of grip on and probably get larger leaves. So I'm actually not sure if this leaf has any kind of ontogeny, which just means that it actually shifts its shape as it kind of gets a little bit older. And more mature, especially as it's kind of growing on a sphagnum pole. So that'll be really interesting to see because I haven't been growing this plant particularly long. Like I said, the smaller cuttings that I have are probably about 3 years old, and this I just got within the last year. So if anybody's been growing this for longer than 3 years, please let me know because I'd love to hear at least, you know, what it's doing for you. My lighting situation for this, I've pulled it back pretty much between 3 to 4 feet away from my southwest facing window. I still think that's a little bit too much light for this particular plant. I would guess just by the color of this plant that it's more accustomed to growing in lower light to moderate light conditions, maybe under the forest floor, maybe even slightly epiphytically, especially because it looks like it could dry out pretty readily. And I would say that the humidity for this particular plant is a little bit more on the moderate side, although if it's growing in Peru, maybe it wouldn't mind a little bit more higher humidity. But because of this, this waxy cuticle and this coriaceous look, I'd imagine that it holds on to its water quite well. Fertilizer, from my experience of actually growing these plants, they aren't super fast growers and they're not slow growers either. So I would say a well-balanced fertilizer, doing it on a bi-weekly basis, is going to be perfect for this particular plant. And since having these plants, I've actually had no complaints. There's been no plant pests that have attacked them. In some cases, I get some brown spots here and there, but I think that's probably due to inconsistent watering of this particular plant. And as far as soil goes, I'm giving it a pretty well-draining mix and making sure that it's not like sitting in water, because I do have this like semi-succulent nature of this plant, which means that it's probably storing some more water in these leaves better than maybe a thin-leaved variety. Anyway, if you get to find this plant in the States or Europe or wherever you are, I would definitely swipe one up because they are slightly unusual and a very beautiful houseplant to grow.